now call the March 15, 2022 Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:45. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
You want me to? Your Honor, I make a motion for the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $301,861.18. Payroll and liabilities for February 25th, 22 in the amount of $478,914.67 for a total of $780,775.85.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Salisbury, second by Councilman Paranto. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything additional we need to discuss?
Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right, there being nothing, I adjourn at 6:45.
I now call the March 15th, 2022 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m., not 6. And at this time, we'd ask, Lindsay, I tried to get to you, but you're busy. Could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And Councilman Larson will give us the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this opportunity to be here at City Council to serve Riverton. Father, we're thankful for all the blessings that we have, thankful for the moisture which Thou hast recently blessed us with, and the warm weather to melt it into the ground. Thankful for the citizens that serve us in the police force, first responders. We're thankful for them and ask you to bless them. Watch over and protect them. Father, we would ask that Thou would bless us, that we might be mindful of those requirements and necessities that we need to provide for the citizens of Riverton. Bless us that we might do that. We ask this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would the Deputy City Clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Perronta. Here. Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
And Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilwoman Borders from tonight's meeting.
So.
Second.
Is Kyle in first?
Sure.
Councilman Larson has the motion, and Councilman Peranto has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare a quorum is present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion, and Councilman Bailey has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on any other item may speak now. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, we'll go on with the consent agenda items. Would the deputy, excuse me.
I'd like to speak about the proposed rate increase to utilities.
We'll do a public hearing on that. and we'll
Okay,
give
I
you
just want
all-
to make sure I'm on
Yeah.
the record.
We'll make sure you can speak on that.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Rich.
Yep. Would the deputy city clerk please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes for March 1st, 2022, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes for March 1st, 2022, executive session. Approval of the minutes for March 15th, 2022, finance committee meeting. Approval of the finance committee recommendations for March 15th, 2022. And approval of the municipal court report for the month of February 2022.
Thank you. Are there any additional items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening and approved the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $301,861.18. Payroll and liabilities for February 25th, 22 in the amount of $478,914.67 for a total of $780,775.85.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Councilman Peranto has the motion, Councilman Bailey has the second. Council discussion.
Your Honor,
Mike.
I'll abstain from any Bailey Enterprises line items on the Finance Committee report.
And Your Honor, I'll abstain from Traveling Computers and Media Works.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance of resolution number 1460, 1446, 1447, and 1448, utility rate increase. Finance Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know you'll be entering into a public hearing shortly to discuss this. I did want to put out on the forefront that I too received a phone call today from Mrs. Leora Kennedy regarding the proposed increases, and she regrets that she was unable to attend tonight, but she did want to express her opposition to the proposals. And I think for the benefit of the members in our audience tonight, and perhaps some from home that were also unable to attend, I would like to provide some history behind the utility rates and where we're currently sitting with that. Back in 2018, the city engaged a third-party experienced utility consulting firm to analyze the city's current utility rate structure and associated costs. The analysis assists in determining what funding levels utilities would need to charge to complete needed system development, refurbishment, repair, maintenance, operations, and ongoing sustainability. The consultant examined a substantial amount of data, including but not limited to borrowing and debt history, including historical and future ongoing obligations, long-term equipment repair and replacement schedules, capital improvement needs, including the timing and costs of those improvements, volume usage data per fund sorted by rate classes and codes, rates and fee tables and resolutions, and system-wide meter inventories, including their cost and efficiency ratios. The consultant provided detailed studies results at the City Council work session on October 8, 2019, and the professional recommendation of the consultant was to change the rate structure and bring pricing up to a level sufficient to support the current expenses associated with the utility infrastructure. The report recommended annual rate increases to support ongoing and future costs, as we were grossly undercharging the amount for the services. It should be noted that the funds operate independently of the city's general fund and independent of each other. Unlike a typical business, the funds are not structured to generate a profit, but rather to provide essential services to the citizenry while also allowing for future upkeep of repairs and replacements. As a reminder, the City Council did approve transfers of $772,273 from reserves to offset expenses associated with the water fund. You approved $339,135 for wastewater and $457,604 to offset expenses associated with the sanitation fund. I completed a financial analysis of the budgetary positions as of yesterday's date. The expenses in the water fund for this year's budget are currently outpacing the revenues by $113,996. The sanitation fund expenses are exceeding revenues by $319,933. And the wastewater fund does look a little more favorable, with revenues exceeding our expenses by a mere $28,608. However, it should be noted that there is $731,750 budgeted for replacement and repairs of critical equipment at the aging wastewater treatment plant. I did run a couple of analysis of the bills, and I'll run through these with you to let you know what the overall increase would look like to our residents. So if we had a resident that was using 1,000 gallons, so this would typically be maybe perhaps our seniors in our community, individuals, singles that are living alone, the overall bill increase would be $2.02 if this should pass. For a residential household using 4,000 gallons a month, the overall increase would be $2.59 per month to their bill. For a residential unit or residential property that uses 10,000 gallons of water, their overall increase in their bill would be $3.78 a month. And then I'll move on to a larger water line. Normally, all of our residentials are 3/4-inch lines. An 1.5-inch line is also a very typical line in our infrastructure. If we had a 1.5-inch line that used 4,000 gallons of water, their overall increase would be $4.28. So we'd be looking at perhaps a commercial property in this regard. And then a 1.5-inch line using 10,000 gallons of water is $5.47, should this rate increase be approved. Based on this information, the city staff does recommend a utility fee pricing increase of 3% to the water and wastewater funds, with the plant investment fees being rounded to the nearest dollar. So it'd be rounded up or down to the nearest dollar, and an increase of 2% to the sanitation fund to be effective with the March billing cycle. And I would stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would move for opening a public hearing.
So moved.
Let me catch on script. Before I do that, I'd like the deputy city clerk to read resolutions numbered 1446, 1447, and 1448 by title only, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Proposed resolution number 1446, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton water system. Proposed resolution number 1447, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton wastewater system. And proposed resolution number 1448, a resolution adjusting rates for the collection and disposal of garbage, rubbish, and debris.
Thank you. The chair would now entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Councilman Bailey has the motion.
Unknown caller.
Second. Okay.
Dean's got the second.
The train.
And Kyle's got the train.
Can't stop it from coming through the station.
That's a fact. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I now declare a public hearing is open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ray Barta. I'm a resident of Riverton, Wyoming. I've lived here for about 18 years. I'm going to cut right to the chase after I give you a little story. So when I drive around town, I stop at a gas station. I'm sure a lot of you guys stop at a gas station. And you see somebody bought $10 worth of gas. You look at the pump before you pay. Do you think that those people that are buying $10 worth of gas, do you think they have a 3-gallon tank on their car? Or do you think that they're in such a hurry that they can't have the time to buy more than $10 worth of gas? Probably not. I think what they're doing is they're buying what they have in their pocket. And I think that to some it's $2 a month or $3 a month. I'm on the high side of that. I have rental properties, and some of them, we may pay utilities on. So that's an extra expense for me, or it's passed through to my tenants. Regardless, I think that everybody in this community is struggling financially. Gas is up around $4 a gallon now, and everything just continues to increase. Now, that being said, I realize that there's expenses that need to be taken care of. But an annual increase of 3%, which isn't actually 3%, because last year, I'm going to just use $100 as a benchmark. If your utility bill was $100, this year it's $103. Well, now when we do 3%, that's 3% on 103, not on 100. If we continue this trend in 10 years, that's not a 30% increase. It's more like a 35% increase. And that's just going to continue to compound. Now, my question would be, and you can answer this in a minute, when was the last time we had a utility rate decrease? I don't think we've had one. And I realize that equipment breaks. I'm a business owner. I have equipment and infrastructure. And some of that I have to pay for myself, but the public is not a slush fund for the city. And every time something breaks, we can't go to the public and go, hey, we need money for that. Hey, we need money for that. And I've spoke to about 25 people today. I spoke to Christy as she walked by a place that I'm working on. But I've spoke to people all over town, and I've not met a single person in this town that was in agreement with raising utility rates again. Half of them didn't realize that this was even on the agenda tonight. So I'd say that there's some folks that need to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in the city. But I'd also say that people are struggling, and raising these rates, even if we're at a deficit, I don't think that that's the clear way out of this. When was the last time maybe the city took a pay cut to take care of some of these things? Because in my business, if I'm not making ends meet, I have two choices. I can either get a loan, or I can not do something. I can not buy a new pickup truck. I could avoid going and getting a coffee or some other expense. So I don't understand why in the private sector I have to do that, but in the public sector we can just continue to raid the public for more money. And I don't hear, well, we need to do this for 2 years and then we're going to be good, and then we're going to drop back to that old benchmark. You use 1,000 gallons of water, and that's an $80 a month utility bill, and everything's good to go. I also would like to comment, I know recycling is not on the agenda, but I realize the city is still picking up recycling items all around town. If we need more money for water, sewer, and garbage, I think that's a great place to go get it. Stop the curbside recycling. Leave it open at Smith Road, because the people that are dedicated to recycling can go down there and take their recyclables. But picking it up on the side of the road costs the city a lot of money. And I believe last time I had heard about it, it was about $170,000 a year. We're at about $117,000 shortfall right now.
In one fund.
In one fund. But I think that would cover at least one of the funds. I think that there's other things that can be done here. The city also does basically runs the sanitation, the garbage. The city does not have to do that. That could be privatized and billed through the city. You could ask me to get a garbage truck, and if I decided to, I could, and you could contract me to haul garbage. Pushing a little bit of capitalism into that system may drive the cost down, but asking the people to continually bear these burdens and in perpetuity, I think that's absurd. I would say if that's okay, then let's propose an across-the-board 3% pay cut to everybody on the city. And so every time we pay 3% more for utilities, the city gets paid 3% less. And then that would light a fire to find money and make these things more palatable for the community and more reasonable. But you cannot keep just raiding the public for money when people don't have it. They'll just start defaulting on their utilities. Do we still pay a $5 fee for curbside recycling? So if you it's a $5 fee off of your. No. Okay.
We took that off.
Okay.
And I think we actually even raised those that recycle pay just a little bit. They don't get a rebate like they did before.
Okay.
Am I correct? Thank you. So we did address that as best we could.
Understood. But there is a possibility of shutting that down to recoup some additional cost?
Certainly is.
Okay. Well, I'm just kind of speaking from, the people that I've spoke to in town who don't want to come in here. Maybe they don't like speaking in front of other people, or they're uncomfortable, or they just, whatever their excuse is.
How could that be? We're such a comfortable group to be around.
I know. It's a charming group. So, but anyways, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
And Ray, why don't you stay there, and we'll see if anybody has questions for you.
Okay.
Anybody want in?
I've already asked my questions today.
So we'll call you back up. Is there anybody else that wants to address us from the audience on this subject? I'll take a swing.
You got one more.
Okay, we do have one more?
Yep.
Let's get everybody's opinion, and then we'll try to get some answers to you. Okay?
Good evening. My name's Kip Post. I live in the city, well, recently lived in the city. I lived in the county for 25 years, moved into the city last year, and was shocked at water bills. I don't have a well. I got to pay for water because I didn't have to drill a well, and I don't have to maintain the well, and I don't have to take care of the well, and I don't have to worry about the electricity costs and all the stuff that goes along with taking care of that. And I'm gonna, I guess, throw an opposing side or the other side of it. I'm not opposed to the rate increase. I'm opposed to a rate increase that's not done correctly. It sounds like those funds are not pulled from the general. We're looking at a very specific cost and expense report. We know exactly what it costs us to take care of people's water, sewer, and garbage, and we're not charging enough. It's plain and simple economics. And when we go back to the taxpayers to ask them to pay for that, there's a cost for services. You know, and the one option that I have as a business owner, when the cost of my materials go up, I raise the cost of my goods. That's how it works. You know, we talk about when was the last time we lowered rates on utilities. When was the last time we lowered prices on anything that's raised up? Rents, I'm a landlord as well. I don't remember the last time I lowered my rents. Will I have to at some point? Possibly. If the demand drops and all of a sudden I don't have the demand for my product, sure, I'm gonna have to lower my rents so that I can get people in there. But if I'm selling a finished product, if it's clothing, as that price goes up, the cost of my clothing goes up, I've got to raise the cost of I've got to raise the price that I sell it for. And I understand where the city's coming from. And, you know, talking about adjusting salaries down, I think people need to really look at what our city folks are paid for the jobs that they do. They're not overpaid. If anything, they're underpaid. You take that same position and throw them out in the private sector, and they're going to make double of what they're making at the city. So that's my 2 cents, I guess. Thanks.
Thanks, Kip. Anyone else that would be interested in addressing the council?
I skipped over a point that I wanted to make, Rich. We had the feasibility study done. I don't know the gentleman's name who did the feasibility study, but does he live in Riverton?
He's an expert from out of town. He had a briefcase even.
Okay, well, next time I'll bring my briefcase. But I do live in town, and the expert from out of town can come in and offer us a solution, but does he have to live with that solution?
Well, let's get back to answering some of your questions, and maybe Mike, did you want to join? Did you want to go first?
Sure.
The floor is yours.
Okay. I guess, do we want to do it in public hearing, or do we want to do it in comments? Discussion of the proposed.
When I close public hearing, I don't get anybody else feedback from the floor. So I would like to do it here
Okay.
before we close so that you can get feedback, and if we get offline, maybe you can put us back on. How's that?
Okay.
So I guess and again, Mia rattled off the numbers of how much more we're spending maintaining our water and sewer and sanitation department than we're bringing in, okay? So again, I'm in business also. How long can you, as a business person, spend more money on your rentals or your business than you're bringing in?
Well, there's no argument about that.
Okay, and what's your obvious only solution to that is you have to charge more for what you do. And employee costs are going up, material costs are going up. You know, I'll guarantee you a piece of plastic pipe that we use to put in water lines has gone up 50% in the last year, probably.
Absolutely.
You know, and all of these things are compounding to a point where, you know, if we're losing, if my math in my head was correct, between those three funds, we're losing $1.5 million a year compared to what we're bringing in,
Not quite.
you know.
So how long have we been losing money like that?
Well, for this year, okay, and we did have a raise. There was many years ahead of that we didn't raise the rates at all, even though the costs were climbing, okay? If you look at the history over the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of times those rates didn't change for several years in a row. And so we sort of got behind the curve. And one of the things we've done as a council is go back and look at that and say, you know, we can't keep spending $1.5 million a year more than we're bringing in. There's going to be a point where those funds are not solvent and we won't be able to make a repair on the sewer treatment plant that we just approved here a while back for, you know, fair substantial amount of money.
800,000.
Yeah. And every time you, everything you,
800,000, is that
yeah.
what you said, Rich?
You know, every time you turn around, we've got those big, huge expenses, okay? And we bid a project, and they're expensive. And everything you touch now is more expensive, okay? And we understand, I mean, I'll guarantee you my water bill is more than the average person, okay? And I understand, but that's part of what we have to do. I want the water to run. We all want our toilets to flush, you know? And so if we're gonna do that, we have to make sure we're paying. And it isn't like the city's, you know, making more money on rates than what they're spending. And so, you know, if we tried to raise the rate and we were $1.5 million ahead of what we spent, then I think your argument would be totally correct. And I'll agree with you on the sanitation. You know, I've brought up before that I think we ought to look at privatizing that. A private company might be able to do it cheaper than the city can. We brought that up before, and guess how many people had to show up and support that? Well, me. Okay?
I was on his side.
You know,
I think more people would be in support of that right now.
and so, but again, those are all things we have to weigh out, and I think
Sure.
if the citizens could get a better price on sanitation services, I think we'd all agree that's better. But we haven't had anybody show us that that's true yet, so, you know.
So, and some more background, and not to beat up on you, but this.
I'm not feeling beat up on.
Good. So what we did do, that expert that came to town, he told us how far back we were. And we were a long ways back on maintaining those funds. And his recommendation was that we move those up at incremental levels to where someday we would get in front of our losses. And instead of coming up to a 10% increase in water bills all at once, we took his advice and marched those out. And he gave us, Mia, does that put you on the spot? Wasn't it 3% for 3 different times?
I apologize, Mayor. Could you please repeat what you were saying?
Was that, didn't he suggest that we have these price increases of lower levels for 3 different times? So there is a schedule with us that this isn't our last increase to get us to where we.
Exactly, and that's my concern.
So with that said, and everybody in the room understands that, this is economics and we do it every day. And I think your analysis of the gas pump is totally correct. I pulled up to the gas pump the other day, and the gentleman in front of my vehicle, I could tell that he was really disappointed what he was having to pay for gas. And he didn't have it. And here I was filling my 35-gallon Camel right to the brink and not giving a lot of concern to my children weren't going without something at that point. And so I could tell that stress. The problem that we've had in the past is we have not kept our plants up to snuff and cleaned up to the point where they're in repair, not improved past that, just repaired to the fact to keep them in running order. Now, some of the real positives I think that we ought to take a swing at in this meeting was last year's budget was 26 million. This year's budget, we're working on 22 million. You're not talking to a group of people that are spendthrifts. We cut back everywhere we can cut back, and we are whittling at the core.
Okay,
And so it's not that we're trying to overspend, but what we're trying to do is get back in front of those enterprise funds. And this is a great place. We never can seem to get this conversation out in front, but enterprise funds, if you pay your sewer bill, that portion of your sewer bill just goes into the sewer. We can reach into that bill a little bit for administrative costs of bookkeeping and those kind of things, but it's very limited.
Okay.
So we can't reach into that for a patrol car, or if the mayor gets a wild hair and wants to buy street lamps down Federal, which I didn't, that's not me. We can't get in those funds, okay? So those funds are fairly controlled, and those, we call those enterprise funds. And so that's why it's so easy for us to look at that and say, hey, this year we're that many, which is, we're right at $1 million, are we not, back in just this year's operation. And so, having got this job, we take it seriously, the fact that the last group just left us with a big deficit, and it was a water treatment plant, the sewage plant, that needed $800,000 of repair this year.
sure.
And that comes right off the top of that fund for that side. And even the city employees are talking to me like, are you gonna listen to us and fix this before we have a major problem and we can't treat the water? And so we listened to them, and we spent $800,000 to get us back to where they felt comfortable of the plant operating correctly.
Okay,
So what we've tried to do with our due diligence is look at what you're talking about. There are some fat factors that still lay with us. Sanitation is one of them. And boy, it's hard to get this information out, but we really don't control that. Every pound of garbage we take over the scales, we pay 4 cents for. We've even suggested that we have a town cleanup and don't charge anybody that day and just take it over the scales. But the county will absolutely not go for anything like that.
I understand the city and the county are two different entities, and we're billed by the county for the city's garbage. I understand that.
And they have a surplus of $22 million.
Well, they have a surplus in excess that they can give a lawn business $58,000. And, I mean, people see that and they start questioning every government entity. And I mean, that's part of what brings me out here tonight. But in addressing Mike, saying that, you guys are being fiscally responsible, I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm questioning the how efficient the funds are being used. And I would also question the prior administration and accountability for what they did. I mean, the city's job above everything else is to keep people safe. That is the police, to keep the people safe, and then provide utilities. And if we can't provide them at a reasonable rate, we're failing. I mean, I can call other cities, and I'm not talking about Teton County, Jackson Hole, or Sheridan, or Cody, but I can call other counties, I can call other states, and I can find considerably lower utilities for water, sewer, and garbage. And if we can't deliver those at a reasonable price, then we're failing, and something needs to be revamped. And then,
Rich.
Are you done?
well,
you
something
done
needs
with
to be,
that thought?
excuse me?
You don't have to be finished, but are you done with your thought?
Okay.
Kyle?
When you say that the city is failing, the city is not failing. The city is not under EPA regulations for discharge. The city has not failed a water test. The city has not failed to fix water leaks on Aspen and other areas. The city has not failed in putting in $1,500,000 project on Hill Street. Your definition of failure doesn't meet criteria. Secondly, this is a desert. Anybody that moves to Riverton knows that. Water is short. We gather it in the summertime and we pump it and we treat it not to our regulations, but we discharge it better than we found it. So I don't see where your failure is. Now, if we have to provide a service, you have to pay for it. We are just trying to maintain what we all enjoy. And I don't know a better way than group funding something that we all enjoy. Now, I understand $3 on a fixed income. I happen to be on a fixed income. And I own income property and I own my own business. And if you think I enjoy paying my water bill in the summertime, I don't. But I understand that I'm using it. Thirdly, we have strived since 2014 to stay in front of the curve. Unfortunately, we didn't have the balls to come out and raise the price of utilities during that period of time. The previous administration started with increasing it, and we finally moved forward. When you fund a wastewater treatment plant, those controls that are 30 years old are replaced with new controls. Now, you can either pay the price or you have a Flint, Michigan on your hands. I'm not for being that. Remember, Flint, Michigan used to make cars?
I probably know more about Flint, Michigan than you. I've studied it for months.
Well, I'm happy for that, but they're not noted for their water. And unfortunately, they haven't maintained that either. We are maintaining it. We have good quality water. Whether you can get it for a cheaper price, you can probably go anywhere and get something cheaper. I can go down the street and not buy a gasoline from certain and get it cheaper. I know your dad used to smile at that. Who would go for 5 cents cheaper? You know? It's just the way it is. Riverton is a unique place. We might not have the cheapest water, but we haven't had a lot of drive-by shootings lately. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Please.
I think part of what Ray's trying to say is right now it's not a normal time, and people aren't just not being able to afford gas prices, but then their grocery bills and all of their other bills are also increasing. And as a city council, we want to make sure that we're taking care of all the stuff that people said, but we also have to realize the times we're in right now are different. And it affects it a little more than $3, and it affects people that don't own a business or don't have things more so. And I think that's what Ray's trying to say. Our community is hurting, and I mean, I thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts on this, because I think it is important that we find a balance on that.
Certainly, and $3 a month is not going to affect me one way or another. You can raise it $15 a month, and it's not going to affect me one way or another, but it's going to affect the people that I spoke to. And today it's $3. Next year it's $3 more. Actually, next year it'll be $3.10. The next year it'll be $3.38 over what it is every year. It's just going to continue to increase. And Kyle, I was not being disrespectful to you.
Oh,
but
I didn't take it that way.
Rich just mentioned that, you know, you guys were left with an $800,000 bill to take care of because these facilities were neglected. I mean, if somebody's neglecting something, that's a failure. That's not a success. And I know the people at the water treatment plant were coming to the city staff and saying, hey, this stuff's on the verge of breaking. It's falling apart. It's not good. We need to do something. But it was ignored for a long time. And it's unfortunate you guys are being stuck with addressing this. But at the same time, to have annual rate increases, I think people would accept one rate increase and not have another one for a while over an annual rate increase. And
Yeah, we had that. We had a history of that. That's why you're standing where you are. Because we got complacent with the past. Well, we don't need a rate increase. Things don't cost as much. I don't know what universe your parts delivery live in, but I haven't seen anything going down in parts coming in recently. And I haven't seen anything, food going down and everything else. And to say, you know, we can't afford it, this is a bad time. I have never known a good time to raise utility rates. I don't know of a good time. But I do know that pipes need to be fixed, pumps need to be maintained, valves need to be replaced, and you gotta do it when you gotta do it.
Your Honor, I have one more. Kyle, how much money do we save on this where it says having our meter inventory since we changed that, where the city's not purchasing the meters? Does that have anything to do with this?
Your Honor, Councilman, no, it doesn't really
Okay.
affect this.
So, I want to clean up some ground we plowed. I'm not blaming anything on any prior administrations. What happens to us is we have facilities that are 35 years old. And in your address to us, you said if the citizenry should not be responsible for stuff that breaks. Well, in my opinion, that's who this is. The plants are theirs, and when they need repair, that's who needs to pay for it. And lots of times we get off on a different tangent, especially this last year, that there's some kind of ARC money that's going to take us to the promised land. And it isn't there. The city of Riverton is ours. And we need to pay for the price of what it costs to bring water out of the ground and distribute it. And we're still behind. This 3% is not the savior. We're still behind. And it won't take care of that $1 million overage. And so we'll be back for more money out of your pocket and my pocket. All of us have a water bill. There isn't anybody in here that doesn't have a water bill. And for Kip to say he came in from the county and got a water bill and didn't like it, well, you know, when your well goes out, it's 25,000, not 500, right? Or we're famous for not having water that is drinkable in Fremont County. Over in Lander, everybody's on a cistern. We're just really fortunate to be able to pump as much water as we do and take care of it as well. I don't want to blame this on past administrations, and if I gave that lead out there, but the easy thing to do is to say, okay, we'll try to take that money out of recycling. We'll take the $175,000 out of recycling and put it in the water. That, Mia, can you do that? If I sell the recycling, I can't put. She does this to me all the time. I sell land and I want to use the money someplace else, and it's got to go where it's got to go. We can't fund that without doing it through the proper steps and funding it through that fund. And so we're all together. And I want everybody, I want you to realize that we appreciate you talking about this so that we can have these discussions. It's not a fact that we want to take more money out of your pocket. One of my problems is I drive around town and people truly have chosen not to water their lawns. I've gone to people's houses and on a different complaint that they had, and then while we were discussing it, say, why don't you water your ground? They feel like they can't afford it. So we get more and more brown grass than we have green grass. Socialism does not work. Looking for somebody else to come and pay our bills is not the answer to making our systems work better.
I absolutely agree, and I ardently oppose socialism. I'm a capitalist until the day I stop breathing, and I believe in efficiency over taxation.
I understand that.
I think that
if
there's
you can
ways to
point- If you
increase
can point to us some other places, Councilman Bailey has pointed out to privatize sanitation. And just so that we just don't go off the reservation or over the cliff, the county privatized the ambulance service, and it's a wreck. And it needs to be put back on its wheels, and it's not going to be easy to do. And the reality of an ambulance ride, I asked this, and I'm always surprised it's probably one of those HR questions you can't ask, but how many people have gotten a ride in an ambulance? I haven't got one yet. And so here I am funding the ambulance, and 66 years later, I haven't got my ride.
Yep.
I really am not looking forward to getting
Careful
there.
what you
You
wish
hope you
for.
don't have one.
Yeah, I don't want to ride either,
If
but
I ask for that and a bunch of
taken.
heads shoot up and start telling us about, their ride and what it cost, it's amazingly expensive. And so some of these services don't necessarily peel back to the fact of your $3 every month increase. We already are practicing socialism when we moved in next door to everybody. And unfortunately, in doing so, they gave bodies like us control of zoning, control of all sorts of things that we just, if you called today and said, I want to get a well permit on my property, the state engineer would say, okay, put a mark on the map where your house is, and you'd put your mark on that, and he'd write you back a really pleasant letter that says, you're in the corporate limits of Riverton, and you won't be able to get a well. That's just won't happen. And so you're stuck on city water or a cistern. You can go pay your quarters at the and move your own water. And so we are aware that this is an expensive process, and it isn't necessarily one that you can get out of. We have everyone captured here. And that's why the previous administrations, not to blame them, took the easy way out and said, well, there's enough protest, we won't raise these funds. We won't make it balance in these funds. We'll make these funds be a loser, and we won't be able to make those work. That's not the way to run. That's not how you run a business. I know you well enough. That's not the way you run your business.
I don't disagree with that, Rich.
And so what we're trying to do is get that back to the point where these funds pay for what they should pay for. And we have been very studious. Now, we'll look at your suggestion on sanitation. I think that's a spot to go look at. But we don't, at least since I've been sitting here, we don't we don't have any real fluffy accounts anywhere. They won't even give me, the mayor, enough to buy turkeys for the employees, or hams it was, right?
Was hams. We didn't give you turkeys.
And eventually we got the money. But we really are trying to scale back because we realize where we're at.
Okay.
And the mineral industry is flat on its back. And we can talk about administrations, and I don't want to go there. We can't control that. I live in a democracy, and I have to live with what the voters choose. And I would like to have a different situation than that. But what we really are hoping to do is not leave those accounts dry. And where we had them was there, and right now where we have them is they're $1 million down. Now, if we get rid of trash collection and return it to privatization, you're going to be at the controls of
private contractors hauling garbage.
and he may come in here and say, gee, this is a mine, this is a gold mine. I can do this for 50% less, and it'll save money for a while. But eventually, we're going to get used to paying that amount of money, and when he needs an increase for gas, and my thought tonight and this week as I went through the material, I don't think 3% is enough. In my industry, where my lumber bill is unbelievable this last month.
I'm building a house. I just replaced a sewer line. I know the cost of pipe. I know the cost of lumber. I know the cost of oil. I know all of these things.
And so I think for what you really do understand about that is those costs are way out of our control. And 3% is way, we're going to come back here, and that same expert from out of town is going to show back up and say, you're still short in these funds. Now, if we compare ourselves to Shoshone or any other municipality, the difference is how do they get their water? Some of them just capture it. And I lived here all my life. When I got on the council the last time, and I went up and found out that half the year we drink the water out of the canal, I was really surprised. And then I went and toured the facility and the cost of that facility to keep that. And so just a little bit of side note, we took on water last year, and we had a short month. Kyle, correct me when I get this story wrong. We had a short month to report in, and so the filters that the water was going through didn't expand fast enough, and we got a little bit more debris flow in the first 4 days or so of the month, and we didn't have a full month to report it. If we would have got a full month to report it, our EPA report would have not shown that. But because we didn't, we had to send everybody out a letter that, oh, there's something in your water. And there really wasn't anything wrong with your water.
It just wasn't right to the spec, that just the .003 instead of .002.
And here we got all these filters in place, and they just haven't expanded yet. They were dry from not having any water on them. And so we are, every time we find something to screw down, in my opinion, we're trying to screw that down.
Okay.
And eventually, we're going to get the screws too tight. And when we talk about cutting funds for city employees, I see that from a private sector. I got to admit with you, I agree. You can make those arguments, but it's not the way to hold employees to say we raised 3% in water, so we're going to take 3% away from our employees. And what we're going to find, we already find it difficult to employ. I do want to put a lot of kudos out there. We're pretty fully staffed. We have one police officer, help me out. We're one officer down, one dispatcher down, two officers down, and one dispatcher, and we cannot find a level 3 water tech to save our lives. Kyle, am I missing anybody else?
Your Honor, that's correct, and we also have had an open position for collection and distribution for several months.
And we haven't been filling those. We've just been, and we just replaced the position in the building department. But my suggestion was that we didn't replace that position. And I don't always win. Don't tell my wife that.
Yep.
But
We don't win every argument we engage in.
that's exactly right. And so we are not deaf to what you're telling us. We do hear it. But I think my answer to you is just this simple. Not raising the rate doesn't fix the shortage in the sanitation funds. And so my thought is that we raise the funds. Probably if we were right about it and if expert was back in the room, he would say now from 19 to 22, he would say it better be 6. And I think we would be very neglectful to not raise the rates and try to get, and I think another one's if we look at what he recommended, there's a couple more coming that are going to raise that. And I think the way you fight socialism is you learn to pay what it costs you to live. And we've allowed socialism to just gradually come into what we do, and somebody else should pay for that water. We should take those funds out of somebody else's paycheck. And I don't see it that way. Once you get to see the bills, Mia carried a basket in here. I don't know if you noticed earlier today, but she carries her basket with her so that if anybody says, where did item such and such go, she can tell you where that's at. And we run a pretty tight ship. And we will look at sanitation again. I don't mind any suggestion. People want to come in and tell us where they think we should target some things. I've thought for a long time that recycling was not a good expenditure for the city. And that would create we never get a credit for what we do. It's not like your business and my business. If I save $175,000, I get to decide where that goes. That goes in the general fund, and Mia's got plenty of bills to cover that money. And one of these days, maybe we will see a surplus, but not right now. And we do some other things that, we're replacing some playground equipment in Sunset Park. And we could stop that. Kyle, how much are we spending there? 70,000?
Your Honor, that's 75,000.
We're putting in a water line for Cowboy Lane that is in tonight's discussion. It's just under $500,000. That agreement was made 11 years ago. And that, to get the ability to cross that easement and put a 24-inch water line through that easement from our big city tank to our water treatment, and that's a backflow. That's treated water going uphill. And we're fortunate for all of these things that we have done. We have been progressive. The councils in front of us have not dropped the ball. That big storage tank up there we're lucky to have it. And so, costs money to run cities, you know that, I know that. I know that's not what you're here to talk about. I understand you want us to tighten our belt. We'll commit to, at least I will, commit to that. But I don't think this is a place, we've tightened our belt here before, and it just keeps us in a negative position in our sanitation funds, is the way I see that.
Okay.
And I think for the public conversation, we can't reach in there. I can't just reach over there and say, I'm gonna get a police car out of sanitation because it's got extra money. We had $28,000 of surplus money in
The wastewater.
wastewater. That won't buy me a police car. And so you know that as well as I do, and lots of people.
Or a sludge pump, or whatever we just spent money on.
We just did about $850,000 worth of work to that facility before it went broke. Before it went broke and we couldn't move sanitation. That's a day that none of us want to have that conversation.
Yep.
And so, you're right. I want you to understand that we know you're right. We wished we didn't have to raise the funds, but there is not a surplus in those funds. And cutting people's wages when we can't get people hired, we are one of the very few in the state of Wyoming that have a staff in its police force as good as we have, with only 2 officers down. And the reason we have that is because our police department is the best in the state, if you're asking me. And people want to work here. And we got people that are coming from a long ways to get here. And they still need a livable wage. They just can't be considered to work for the city on a less wage than what the average guy would do his work at. So I think we probably beat that to death. And I'm not scolding you. I think your opinion is well formed. And I think all of the people you spoke to today have the same opinion. And you know, what we need to do is get that information out. You mentioned that no one knew we were talking about this rate hike, but we've had it on schedule for quite a while. And there'll be another one. I think when you get back out there and tell people that the council didn't listen to you, prep them for the fact that next go around, we probably won't listen to you again.
Well, I wouldn't say you didn't listen. I would just say that you guys have an agenda and the public has an agenda. And I'd say that I would be looking at ways to increase efficiency here besides just increasing, the amount that you're charging the public for what you're doing. There's ways to increase efficiency, and I think those need to be looked at. And I'm thankful that you're willing to look at sanitation, garbage collection for one, and recycling. I appreciate that. And I'm sure the public has more ideas too. And if anybody gives me one, I'll be happy to share them with you.
We would run after those like a dog after a bone, and I think we've proven that. We haven't spent money that we didn't have, and we haven't chased down a lot of expenditures that weren't good ideas. And so, with that said, it's still a democracy, and if we can't get the votes to change collection of recycling, that's a touchy button. There's a lot of people. There'll be more people show up when we say we're going to kill recycling.
Yeah, but that's tied to the idea that we're saving the environment, when in reality those recyclables are just going to the landfill after you recycle them. So we don't show that. We don't display that on TV. We make everybody feel good about putting your box out on the curb and then half of it blows down the street, and then we have a free waste day where we pick up the neighbor's junk because they're recycling and saving the world. So,
Another opinion, right?
well, that's my opinion, but I mean, I see it in action.
And so, and I don't disagree. And so we will, anything that you can find that we can attach a reduction, we would be, I know these 7 would be interested to hear any of those suggestions.
Okay, I appreciate the time. You guys don't have to hang out here extra for me, so, all
We appreciate your willingness to come and talk.
right, thank you.
Mia has a question.
Mia?
Your Honor, just really quickly, I wanted to touch base on the efficiency aspect that was discussed. It does cost money to make these repairs and the replacements of certain things, but it will also improve some of our efficiencies. Take, for example, when we did the East Fremont Street water line replacement project, our collection and distribution crews went out several times a year in the middle of the night, working, adding extra manpower, extra hours to repair what was a defective water line. At the end of the day, we spent the money to repair the line. We no longer have the personnel costs to repair it. We no longer have lost water in our systems. So I think it's important to know that when we do spend the money, we're spending it to be more efficient and to improve our system as such. And the other thing that I wanted to really quickly touch base on was that our rate analyst actually consulted with the Wyoming Association of Rural Water Services or Systems and was endorsed by them as well. So while he is an out-of-state consultant, he does work closely with our rural water systems here in the state of Wyoming, who is very familiar with what water service charges are, water and sewer within the state of Wyoming.
Thanks, Mia. We appreciate your input. I appreciate those numbers. I wrote them as fast as I could, but you might want to email those out to us so we have those. And you know, water consumption is an interesting problem. The water that the meter says we have so much water, and then we bill out the sewer off of what the water usage is. And so it's going to affect the sewer line cost too. And there just isn't a lot of way to do this. And here I'm sitting seeing inflation race, and I'm raising water rates, and am I effective in what I'm doing? If it truly is up to 6 and 8 and 10%, and I'm only raising 3, I'm just picking at the scab all the time. And so my disappointment is maybe 3 isn't enough to raise it. And I realize and boy, I do feel sorry for the people that are fixed and can't, and we all have to make choices. I mean, you know, there's just choices every day that we have to make, and it's unfortunate that we have to decide if we can water our grass or just let it go brown. And I can make the argument to us that let's just not have water bills, and we'll just have green grass, and everybody can use as much water as they want. And then we'd have conversations. Kyle, last summer we went to, we were put on alert that we were at the edge of being limited for our water consumption out of the Wind River. And so what do they call that?
Restrictions.
Water restriction. And so we can't just pump wildly out of that. And then we also have the problem of how can we pump with our wells? And so we just pull our wells, and there's 26 wells that we use.
Your Honor, we have 13 operating in the field.
13 through the winter.
Correct.
So those wells we could put back on and pump, but then that's to lift that out of the ground year round would just double our electrical cost. And so it's a interesting equation to get all the moving parts correct. And so I appreciate what staff does. I've wanted to limit Tony's salary lots of times, but I didn't want to necessarily limit Megan's. Okay, so is that fair? I don't think that's the way to do it either. And so I see what you're telling me, and so I understand it. But I think this is a good conversation. Is there anybody else that is in the audience that wishes to address water increases, sewer line increases?
Your Honor, seeing none, I would move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close, and Councilman Bailey has the motion, and Councilman Larson has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1446.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Discussion.
Your Honor, quick question. And this is probably a Mia question, but what impact will a 3% increase actually have on the deficit that we're going to incur? You know, back to the mayor's question of, is that enough? And then the second part of that question would be, that probably comes from the general fund, a transfer out of the general fund to cover the shortcoming, and what impact does that then have?
To address your first question, I think I would need to do some more detailed analysis on the 3%. I do follow our city's fiscal position, our cash balances in our funds on a monthly basis. If you give me a moment, I'll pull it up real quick, and we can take a look at the averages and where we sit. The second, while I'm pulling that up, the second item that you had addressed was that we don't transfer out of the general fund to supplement any of the enterprise funds. We cannot by statute, so it would have no effect on the general fund.
So where does the money come from when you have a shortfall?
So, which we've never had to do that, but if we were to actually transfer money from another fund, we could transfer from within the enterprise funds, but we are required by statute to consider that a loan at that point, and we would have to have a formal repayment method as well as a rate of interest for repayment on that. Just one moment, and I'll pull up some cash analysis just to tell you where we sit with that.
Your Honor, so along what Dean was asking, those funds are basically self-sustaining.
Or should be?
Yeah, should be, and that's why we're raising the rate, is because we lost $1 million, we gotta find a way to put $1 million in. Now, we do carry reserves, again, which we all should do, so that when our water heater goes out, we don't not eat that month because we're paying for a water heater. It's the same with the fund. We have to retain a certain amount of reserves so that when one of the pumps dies at the sewer treatment plant, we can buy a pump and then, build our reserves back up with future revenues, so.
Your Honor,
Yes.
if I may, I think I might have some information that may help while Mia's looking up some of those accounts.
Okay.
Just as a quick example, on the water fund, when we look at our current budget, if we just take our operating expenses, and I'm using round numbers, our operating expenses are $2.69 million. When we look at the receipts that we receive for our water bills, that's $2.6 million. So when we're looking just at operations, we're operating above what those simple receipts are. Now, we do receive also revenue from plant investment fees and other fees associated with that fund, which help with that. The other thing that we need to look at is we have our capital obligations, and right now in our water fund, our capital obligation is $921,000. So how do we pay for that when we're not bringing in enough receipts? The answer is in our cash accounts and in our rainy day fund, really. So if we get to a point to where we're not able to cover our operational expenses, we draw upon our savings, which is meant to keep our capital system running. And if we draw upon that, we no longer have an opportunity to maintain our capital. So I hope those numbers are consistent with what Mia's looking for. I just had a chance to look through the numbers. But that's a simple example in the water fund that shows operationally, even with the efficiencies we've implemented over the last several years, with the cuts we've had, it's still very challenging to operate a water system and still keep it as inexpensive as possible.
I just did quick math. There's 4,900 meters, basically. How's your math?
So I did the math, $2.6 million, 3% of that is $78,000. And Tamia, how much were we short in the water fund this year?
Right now, currently as of today, $113,996.
Right. So basically, this does not even get us to the point where we're back even at, over what we spent.
Not. And another way to do that is there's about 4,900 meters in the city of Riverton. And I think I'm kind of close to that. And if they all were raised by $3, you would get $14,700 addition per month, which would only raise you $176,400 per year. And it's not stopping the flow of the cost of what we're sending out. And yet, we pick up those monies and sanitation is gonna go up because we run it off your water. We're not trying to make any of this hidden magic. We want everybody's assistance in it. Mia does a wonderful job. There's just nothing that we can say that isn't praiseworthy of what she does. If you don't have enough money, what Kyle's trying to point out is eventually comes out of your reserves, and we do have some reserve accounts that they don't tell me about it because I'd be spending them, right? If they'd said to me, we got $2 million over here, I would figure out how to use that. So there is problems with that, but once again, you can't just dump money in the top of a fund that is losing money. The system is set up so that it funds itself, and what we're charging for that product should pay for the usage in that account.
So I pull our month-end cash figures and have been tracking this data since 2012. And right now, our funds in the amount of balances in our water fund is down 2% over the 5-year average. The wastewater fund is 19% less than the 5-year average, and then the sanitation fund is 5%. So we're seeing a decline in our funds.
And see, the expert from out of town that we always like to take a shot at, he wanted us to raise them higher, but we felt like we couldn't do that. But his forecast was exactly what we're talking about. We aren't stacking money in those accounts. And so maybe being better stewards, we really should say, hey, it's got to be 6, so that we start to put more money in than we're taking out. But once again, we bailed out at 3, so that's the other way to approach that. So does that answer your
It does.
question?
Thank you, Mia. Okay.
We're still on council discussion. Does any other council member have anything to? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. The chair would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1447.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilwoman Cox has the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The chair would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 1448.
So moved.
Second.
Toronto has the motion and Councilman Larson has the second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. We're now at city board appointments, for Riverton Rendezvous Committee. Deputy City Clerk's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and council, before you tonight for your consideration are 2 reappointments to the Riverton Rendezvous Committee. Per resolution number 1231, the Rendezvous Committee serves as an advisory board of this governing body. The board is to be made up of not less than 5 nor more than 9 members, who shall be annually appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council. Currently, the board has a total of 4 members who were reappointed at the beginning of the year. With the reappointment of Mrs. Jerry Bash and Mr. Kerry Fike, the board will consist of 6 voting members, in addition to both myself and Kristen Watson serving as the city liaisons. All members have previously served on this committee, and we are happy to have each of them reappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the mayoral citizens committee appointments of Jerry Bash and Mr. Kerry Fike
So moved.
for the Rendezvous committee.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Larson. Mike, you second?
Sure.
Councilman Bailey has a second. Further discussion. So we have 6 members,
Yes,
and we would like 9.
we'll take anyone.
So the first 3 people that get up and leave the room are now on the rendezvous. I don't think that's how that's supposed to work. But if anybody's listening or would like to participate, we could use that help. And that's a yearly activity that goes off, and it's extremely exciting and fun to be on. And if you want to run with a bunch of fun people and have some fun, it takes some commitment, but there's a lot more enjoyment that you get out of it than what you put in. And we could use 3 more members, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of ordinance number 22-003 on second reading, Riverview Cove edition, or annex. Are we annexing that? Okay, let's do it then. Would the deputy city clerk please read ordinance number 22-003 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-003 on second reading. An ordinance annexing the Riverview Cove subdivision, Fremont County, Wyoming, not previously annexed to the city of Riverton, designating the zoning classification of the parcel and amending zoning map to reflect same, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 2020-003 on second reading, annexation of the Riverview Cove.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilman Peranto has the second. Any further discussion? We do have the surveyor and the owner in the room if anybody wants any information. Tom was kind enough to give me some feedback from last meeting. I appreciated that feedback. So if no one has any questions, we'll move forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Airport terminal lease with the Military Museum. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to recognize Mr. Craig Blumenshine, who's here as well, who represents the National Museum of Military Vehicles. As you are aware, the FAA has certain grant assurances for our airport. One of those is to make the airport as self-sustaining as possible. In order to become self-sustaining or to generate as many revenues as possible at the airport, we do charge a number of fees, for example, landing fees and lease fees. The one before you tonight is a terminal lease fee as it relates to display items for the commercial terminal. The Military Museum expressed interest a few months ago about leasing space in the terminal to promote their facility in Du Bois, Wyoming. Mr. Blumenshine was able to attend the airport board meeting on January 21st to discuss their proposal. And in brief, as referenced in your packet, there are really 5 spaces within the terminal that the Military Museum would like to display items. The first is a large screen television placed to the left of our 2 cabinets. As you remember, those are leased right now to the Fremont County Museum System and then also to Maven. They'd like to occupy the space that was a payphone location. I know you're going to be shocked that we don't have a payphone there anymore, but it's vacant space. They'd like to hang a TV there that will be a promotional video of the items at the museum that people are able to view when they're walking into the terminal and before they're in the ticket area or the secure area. The second location is another large screen television that will be placed within the hold area or the secure area. This concept would be very similar, where they'll play a 15-minute video that's on a loop that just demonstrates not just the amenities associated with the museum, but also some amenities associated with Fremont County. And they've produced that. I've had an opportunity to see that, and they've partnered with Wind River Visitor Council to ensure they have aesthetically pleasing images for that. The next 3 locations will be at the ticket counter area, secure area, and then also the baggage claim area. And it will represent a 48-inch by 81-inch pop-up banner. You have an example of one right there in the audience today. So these represent the request by the Military Museum. There also is a map in your packet that shows the approximate locations of each of these display areas. The Airport Board unanimously passed a motion recommending the City Council and staff work with the Military Museum to establish a lease. It should be noted that the museum has expressed interest and is also open to the concept of potentially placing a vehicle at the airport location. However, this is more of a long-term initiative, and we'll have to come back once we have opportunity to hone down those details. The City of Riverton leases space in the terminal at an annual rate of $18 a square foot. However, the city also utilizes a non-commercial rate for community entities. That rate is $1 per year. As an example, about a year ago, the City Council approved a lease for $1 a year for the Riverton Museum System to display items in the cabinet that we've already referenced.
Who got that dollar?
Your Honor, Mia did.
Haven't approved it yet.
Tonight, in addition to considering the lease space proposal by the museum, the City Council needs to make a decision about the rate that it will charge for this lease. Really, you have a couple options. The first is to utilize the established $18 a square foot rate or the $1 rate for community entities. Mr. Blumenschein and I have also explored a third option, and that would be a no-fee lease, but it provide opportunity to the airport to display items at the Military Museum. There's probably still some more coordination that would occur on that, as Mr. Blumenschein and I have traded emails, and it would most likely be an option in the future as they expand their museum. So I would say tonight you probably should explore the first 2 options. As far as alternates, the council may choose to have a smaller footprint of display items, but otherwise, staff recommends that you consider this lease agreement. We're very happy to have the Military Museum express interest, and as you consider this, you'll need to decide again the lease rate. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. How do we get a tank?
We can work on that.
Good.
We've discussed it internally.
An operation, Mike wants it to work.
They're all operational up there.
Are they?
Yeah.
They all operational?
They are.
It is fun.
Well, first, Mayor, if I may, I'll invite you to come to the grand opening on May 28th, and we'll see about getting you a ride in a tank.
Oh,
Be interested.
I'll be there.
All right.
I've toured it. Mr. Starks is such a kind individual. I've been given the tour 3 times, and you can't see enough of it. So it is as close to Smithsonian as you can get on this side of the Mississippi. So I appreciate what you do there.
Appreciate that.
Do we, in considering, I would not be the one to put a motion forward, but I would suggest that we do the $1. I'm not going to see the money anyway, so whether it's $6 or $1, it's not going to amount to a lot of money. Do you have a preference?
Mr. Mayor, we're happy to be at your leisure here and pay either rate and to work with the council as you see fit for us. Our goal here, I think, is worth noting, is to do everything that we possibly can to increase what has now become Wyoming's second leading economic engine, and that's tourism. And that is tourism right here in Fremont County. And whatever we can do to, assist in that process, we're open for. I was sharing with Councilman Larson before the meeting tonight, just briefly, that we attended the Worth Initiative announcement in Laramie a week ago, the Wyoming Outdoor Recreation and Tourism announcement. And the Branding Iron, which is the University of Wyoming's newspaper, did a wonderful write-up on Dan Starks in the museum. And Dan's comment was worth noting. He said, "We came here not to ask what the Worth Initiative can do for us, the museum. It's what can we do for the Worth Initiative and for tourism in Wyoming." So that's why we're here. That's our goal here, to make the 4 million people that come just 90 minutes away from us come over to Fremont County. And just read, while we were in the audience, a report of advanced bookings in Jackson Hole, and if you can believe it, after what you read last year, of the tourist problems they had in Jackson a year ago, they are 14% ahead in their summer bookings for this year. And if that tells you the opportunity that there is just right over the mountain there. And we're going to do everything that we can to.
With no airport.
With no airport.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. So we're working as hard as we possibly can to attack that market and that traveler, get them over the hill.
Well,
Just build an annex right here in Riverton.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I just can't say enough good about it. There is a map in our pamphlet. Is everybody okay with what they've suggested? We are going to lose our telephone.
Yeah.
Would one of the flat screens be used as a phone also?
Well,
Video phone.
Councilman Perano can probably help us with that. But, Mr. Mayor, I want to make one note that I want to work with staff about that. Originally, the idea was that we would just pop a USB drive in that thing and let it play. But since we've started discussing this, we've had other entities ask us for digital signage. So we've decided that we need a better way to control that signage, support that signage from different entities that have different uses. So we may need access to internet to be able to control that signage remotely. What you'll see on the screen won't be any different than what we plan to see. It's just that we may need an enhanced ability to be able to control that. So we might need access to internet, and we would ask your permission to work with staff, if that be the case, to support that.
I believe IT can get us those links, can we not?
Bandwidth, just if I may, would be very, very small for us to be able to do that, so.
Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Blumenshine. Yes, we've worked with other tenants at the airport for access to the city's internet. However, that does come at a fee with the lease, so we would need to work through that. That may go contrary to the proposal of just $1 a year. And then I would recommend that we continue to work, as Mr. Blumenshine suggested, with the museum on that, because especially if this is going to be a community service rate, and then other entities start advertising on those televisions, it changes the scope quite significantly to where it's not just promoting the military museum, but other assets in the county as well. So perhaps we can just coordinate through that, but if it changes the vision of those screens to being more advertising boards, we would have to work on that, I think, together. And Mr. Blumenshine has been wonderful to work with.
And, Mr. Mayor, let me address that just briefly, if I could. Excuse me, Mr.
Are you providing the screens?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll take care of everything. And I think we'll need to do a little bit of construction behind that phone booth setup that is there to kind of make that look real nice. And I think
You don't like the phone booth?
it's very interesting. It's like at the old,
Said.
it's like at the old Capitol. They took away the phone booths they used to have in there, which I thought was a real major disappointment. Yeah. But I did want to say our vision is not to have any advertising at all on any of the 2 screens that we're talking to you about, other than inside the TSA terminal to show videos that perhaps the Wind River Visitors Council provides us about stuff to do in Fremont County. We will not be selling advertising about anything. We will just be showing the museum assets.
And Mr. Starks is nice enough that the new military memorial out at Fort Washakie, is allowing them to have one of his tanks also. He is very generous with his assets, and so I think we're going to see a lot of interest, and because of his generosity throughout the whole area, that these things are going to bring bring people to Fremont County.
Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely true. Scotty Ratliff and John Cox bought that project to Mr. Starks, and he absolutely is excited to support that, and I think you'll see that in place before August at the pathway of honor there, so.
I was hoping we'd get the old jet.
that'd be-
Your Honor, could we do a two thing? Since we really don't know about the advertising on the other two televisions, couldn't we just allow him to move ahead with his and then field the others with an MOU or something?
I think we ought to just put it back in staff's hands. I think that Mr. Starks will be more than generous, and I think staff will keep us out of a problem with, I think what we need to be careful with is those leases that somebody will come back, if they're not constructed correctly, somebody will come back and say, well, the museum got usage for $1, and so we'd like that too. And Maven, because they sell their product, pays a higher fee. So I think Kyle can handle that, and I think that whoever puts the motion forward ought to just go to the fact that we put that back in staff's hands to negotiate.
Your Honor, I'll make that motion to, sorry?
I was just going to add one thing. I would make sure with the advertising, maybe check with our chamber, because I know the advertising on the big screen, I don't know if you guys have been in talks and stuff, but coordinate that, because that's,
I think their screen is, I would just like to keep that 100% separate.
right. But the advertising and stuff, it's the chamber's income, basically.
We are trying to push the chamber to the top of the food chain, and so when we get that opportunity, we would appreciate that. But, and I know that your organization understands that, so that's our atmosphere, so.
Your Honor, if I may, just one last comment, and I appreciate the discussion. It does sound that what they plan for those two big screen TVs is not really advertising. It's more just promoting, I think, the tourism opportunities in the county. And in my mind, that falls in line with something that is not advertisement. There are a number of grant assurances that we agree to every time we accept money for our airport improvement projects. And one of them is, yes, we have to generate funds to make the airport as self-sustaining as possible. The other is that we do not discriminate economically, meaning we give Mr. Peranto a deal, and then Mr. Bailey a different deal, and then Mr. Guard a different deal. It has to be a level playing field, and we basically charge the same rate for the same use. So I do think that we're okay in the sense that we're following our
Don't get a better deal than these two guys?
I don't think so.
Your Honor, I need to amend my statement there, I suppose. But that was an example just to help illustrate that we do have to follow the established rates. And so I think you're okay with it.
That's why I say let's put it back in the hands of staff. They'll know how to keep us out of that.
So, Your Honor, I'll make the motion that we proceed with the $1 annual rate, and any internet or other fees that might be associated with it could be negotiated at that time, just to keep things simple and allow the museum to move forward.
And I'll add to that motion, the chair would entertain a motion to enter into the lease agreement with the National Museum of Military Vehicles for the terminal lease space at Central Wyoming College,
I couldn't have said it better.
or Central Wyoming Airport, excuse me.
So moved.
You moved out of the college.
Second.
We'll advertise at the college too, so.
So I have the motion from Councilman Peranto, and I have Kyle's, I'll have him on the second. So Councilman Larson has the second. Any other discussion for the council?
I think it's a fantastic project.
Yep.
I do too. Thank you for your efforts. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Real estate listing contract, city administrators report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Pursuant to council direction at the January 4th, 2022 regular council meeting, City of Riverton conducted an RFP process with the intent of selecting a real estate firm to sell city properties, specifically those at the airport that the city possesses. The notice of the RFP was advertised for 6 consecutive weeks. 2 proposals were ultimately received within the provided time frame. one from Remax All-Star Realty and one from Home Source Realty. At the March 1st meeting, regular council meeting, council directed staff to prepare a 4-year agreement with Home Source Realty to provide the denoted services. That real estate agreement is the standard real estate agreement we've entered into previously. It is provided for you. The properties are listed thereon. Additional discussion about those at a later date is also appropriate as we move through that process and consider those. One of the questions that came up in the meantime is because it is a 4-year term, is it binding a future council? We did consult with legal on that as well to make sure that our understanding was appropriate, and it is. Because you have this as a 4-year agreement, but it has a 45-day notice without cause and without impact. Therefore, council can do away with it as they see fit or without cause at any time. So the fact is, in a month from now, you could do very much that. At 4 years from now, council will be able to consider whether to go back out for a process again, which is normal in the 4, 5, and 6 year time frame. Somewhere in there, it's very normal to go out for those. But it does not restrict, the law does not, as we understand it, restrict you from doing the 4-year contract as directed. With that, Your Honor, staff recommends that council approve the real estate listing as provided. It is also pointed out that George Pipka is also present if there's any questions for him, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you, Your Honor.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve a real estate listing contract as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Councilman Larson has the second. Further discussion. I know the answer to this, but we are on multi-list, and any real estate agency is welcome to that, correct?
Mayor, Council, George Piplica, Home Source. Yeah, so the listing, right now, there's nothing out there. It will be after tonight or when we sign this. It'll be a multi-list contract. You've got a compensation agreement in there at 6%. It's a 3% split with any office. And we split with any office, so it can be Colorado for all I care, as long as they've got a Wyoming license as well. So any licensed real estate agent in Wyoming can be compensated for it. So there's just that process that we all know takes a few weeks to go through, and Tony and I worked on that a little bit on making sure that's a little bit clearer and make sure the public's a little more aware of it. I think these 5 lots, and I gave you a suggested list price that you might want to discuss other than public. That is at a different rate than what we have been doing, because smaller lot generally is a higher price. So it's increased what we had that lot for sale as a whole is obviously worth more divided by 5. And so our suggested list price, and one is higher because it has Valley View frontage and the other street frontage. We think that lot's very desirable. And of course, increasing that helps us all along for that purpose, what you want to use it for. So we're excited that you've given us another opportunity. We want to be a part of the city. We like being involved, so.
We appreciate that, and to be real truthful, this is mostly on Mayor Guard. I just want people to realize that there's access and we're open, and so.
Oh, no, we fully support. This is the 3rd time. This is a little bit, in fact, it made us do our job a little bit better of making a little more clear evidence of what the market's doing. We've done some great strides in the last few years. They were never priced originally. That was something that just didn't work. And same thing here. There's an addendum to your listing that gives suggested price. It allows us to add properties or take off properties, or and it does have that 45 day clause that if there's something wrong, it leaves you the right to move right along without any issue whatsoever. So.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the table? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Motion passed. Out of city water service agreement, Cowboy Lane area, Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As you are aware, we are going to be constructing a new water main in that vicinity. And there are several out-of-city county residents that are going to be in the area that are interested in receiving city water. Municipal code states that to be on the city water system, you need to be annexed within the corporate boundaries of the city. However, there is a provision in 1308220 of the municipal code that allows the city council in its sole discretion to enter into agreements with property owners whose property lies outside the corporate boundary to receive city water and join our system. Municipal Code 1308230 outlines the specifics of how that happens, and I'll go through that briefly. Prior to entering an agreement, the city council should verify that the extension of the water service is economically feasible, that the property to be served is readily adaptable and made to conform whenever annexed with our subdivision plating, zoning, and construction improvement processes. It states that adequate provision for the extension of sanitary sewer or provision that an on-site disposal system of liquid waste be accomplished on the property. It also states that the area within the property can be reasonably expected to annex at some point in the future. Two other provisions that states that these agreements should promote the health, safety, and welfare of the community and also promote the growth and development of the city. So that's your checklist as a city council when you consider these agreements. Right now, there are 4 property owners who are interested that live in the vicinity of Cooper and Cowboy Lane. We have 2 of them here tonight. We have the Hoffmans and also the Petersons. And so staff, in order to help facilitate their request, has drafted this agreement for you to approve to form tonight. If approved, we can then continue to work with these residents, and then individually, these agreements will come back to you likely on consent agenda because you've already approved to the form. But doing so tonight will speed up the process and allow them to coordinate a little bit quicker. These connections won't happen until the water main is in place, but residents need to plan for a contractor to make their connection, and they also need to plan for getting a permit and paying the necessary fees for their service. So we're hoping to expedite their request in a manner that is responsible. As far as the budget impact, there's no budget impact to approving this agreement to form. However, if these properties do end up getting on the city system, we will receive the fees associated therewith. They'll have to pay the plant investment fee and then also their monthly consumption fee, and that would be at the out of a city rate. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion, the form agreement to provide water service connections outside the corporate limits of the city of Riverton for unincorporated Fremont County properties in vacancy of the of the Cowboy Lane Water Project.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Salisbury has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Any discussion? Are we okay with this and what we're discussing?
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate you bringing that up. There is a slight amendment to the verbiage that was in your packet, and that's because legal review was able to look at the agreement. It's a slight change, so your approval tonight will incorporate this. Essentially, it relates to the requirement of the code for these properties to be annexed at some time that is reasonable. The agreement states that it's reasonable according to you as a governing body. After legal counsel looked at it, they felt that in order to be compliant and in the spirit of state statute, we add a sentence that basically states that when this happens, when the annexation happens, that the land needs to be appropriately zoned and comply with the master plan of the city of Riverton. So it's non-substantive, and your approval tonight will incorporate the comments made by our legal counsel.
So when we take code zoning into effect, are we putting those in as a residential zoning? We're not gonna zone them now, right? But if we got a apartment building out there, it would be a different zoning when we got around to their usage, right?
Your Honor, that's correct. It would be determined at the time the annexation would happen. And so that could be 5 years, it could be 50 years. but we can't annex a property without ascribing a zone to it.
Okay. And it probably will be closer to the 50 years than 5 years. It's a ways out of town. It would be a big range for us to reach out and circle a zoning request there, so.
Your Honor.
Yep.
Question for Kyle, I suppose. So this water line goes basically from Cooper Road and goes up through Cowboy Lane. Is that water line got other future, I mean, are we doing this in a future plan to keep moving farther north, for example? Or is this really just designed to get to these residential area that we're getting on right now?
Your Honor, Councilman, this line doesn't necessarily address future growth, and that's because the water main is adjacent to Cowboy Lane. It's actually on tribal ground. So the purpose for the line was to provide water to the tribal ground as part of our easement agreement. But we did have some laterals, 8-inch laterals, come off that shoot towards Cowboy Lane in order to accommodate these residential properties that are just in the area. So it does not necessarily address future growth per se. It just takes care of the residents that are there.
Okay.
And we felt it was a good idea to give opportunity to the county residents that are in the area.
So I think a better way to say that is we're going to put this amount of improvements in, and anybody else that would tie on to that, which could happen even if it was a tribe or somebody else, it would be at their cost to extend. And all those water lines are at their correct sizing to be extended. They're all 8-inch lines, right? And so aren't we picking up a booster station in this, a water flow force along that?
No, Your Honor. We do have a booster station that's close to this area. So the larger line, the transmission line that was put in as part of the Riverton Water Supply Project, has booster stations on each end, one at the plant and one at the 2 million gallon tank on Airport Hill.
And I guess what I was trying to get to, those features do enhance the water system inside the city of Riverton.
Your Honor, that's correct.
And so everything about this helps the city of Riverton, and we're extending these lines out at this distance, and anything after this will come at the developer's cost. So if somebody else wants to develop more housing, they would be in it they'd have to pay the cost. Am I right about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. You want to try to run that?
Sure. Your Honor, after last city council meeting regarding the ordinance or the motion to approve the zone, or not zoning, sorry, that zoning stuck in my mind, the building code issue.
Which was defeated.
Which was defeated, and I was one of the people that voted no. And so, as per the Robert's rules, I would move that we bring that back for a vote, because, and so that would be my motion, and I guess.
Second.
I would accept the second, and.
And the motion would be to reevaluate the exemptions from the UBC.
Right, so to approve whatever we had it listed with the last meeting, which is to approve the building codes for 2021, if I remember correctly.
Your Honor, the formal motion would be to reconsider ordinance 2020, a motion to reconsider ordinance 22-002.
Okay.
And we will pick that up in the second reading if this goes through?
Yes, Your Honor. Your first step, Councilman Bailey is correct. He can motion for that. Anybody can second. And then you would vote on the reconsideration. If the reconsideration is approved, then you would.
So do you want the motion to read as a reconsideration?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so give us the number again and we'll do it right.
22-002.
Right, so I would move to reconsider 20-002. Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Megan, are you getting all this?
Yes, Your Honor.
To approach that ordinance, All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. So we're 6-0 to put that back on the council chamber. Okay?
Your Honor, it is now on for your consideration presently on second reading with no motion associated with it yet.
So Mike asked me that earlier tonight. Can we pass second motion at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, you can.
So that leaves us third to discuss it.
Yes, Your Honor.
So would we need to have another motion or just call for another vote?
You would have a motion to approve 22-002 on second reading as presented and have that read.
I would move that we approve 22-002 on second reading.
Second.
So we have Councilman Bailey with the motion and Councilwoman Cox with the second. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We need to read it first.
Oh.
Do you have that to read? Would you
I do.
please read it for us?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-002 on second reading. An ordinance amending Title 15 Buildings and Construction Codes to revise Chapter 15.04 Building Construction and Maintenance Codes, Sections 15.04.010, Adoption, Applicability, Filing, and 15.04.040, Local Design Criteria and Loadings of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you.
And discussion.
Anybody got any discussion? Mike?
Well, I guess I feel this is pretty important. As much as I hate, as much as the rest of us, that the state sort of shoves this down our throats and doesn't really give us the ability to choose or not to choose. But I think if we choose not to approve it, that puts us at the risk of having the state of Wyoming do the inspections for the city of Riverton, which is far less desirable than us being able to do it in-house and have at least an ice cube's chance in hell of convincing Mike of what we want to do, as opposed to some bureaucrat that doesn't live here, doesn't care, doesn't understand our unique issues that we may have.
Your Honor, Mayor.
Kyle?
The real crux of the matter is when we have our own inspector, we can schedule somewhere in a timely basis to meet schedule of contractors and construction. But the fire department, with its 2 employees or 3, doesn't have that option. And they're in where? Cheyenne, Wyoming. And what's between Cheyenne and Riverton? I-80 and snow. So it's just, as much as, I can't tell you how I hate it,
And
I feel that we need to have more control.
how much I disagree with your statement. There's a lot of employees in that division, and I would like to see them do their own work. And I think we need to do everything we can to get back home rule and get it out of the legislature so that we can control these things here in Riverton. And yeah, what if we don't pass this ordinance, they could require us to have residential structures fire suppressed.
Yeah.
So I just think we got to play their game, but we also need to not drop the ball and try to get back in control of home rule and get it out of the legislature. So I would recommend from my position that is an item that needs to be taken care of. Any other discussion? With that, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. So both of those, Megan, you have as passing amendments to?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. We're down to council reports and comments. Lindsay, can you start us off?
Sure. I've only attended the rec board meeting that was last week, and I went to the state basketball tournament this weekend, watched the boys play. They did great in the last game. They won the consolation bracket. Our speech and debate team won state again this year. They're on a roll. So other than that, I haven't been to any other meetings since our last meeting.
Thank you. You stole my thunder. I was going to get both of those activities. Good job.
Sorry.
Appreciate you. Mike?
I was able to attend most of the Force Committee meeting that was this Monday, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, the days all run together. But again, that committee's hard at trying to get figured out what we're going to spend the 1 cent Fix Our Roads Committee tax that we have. So again, we've got probably half of Sunset is going to get repaired this year. And then they've got several other pavement improvement projects that they're going to try to do some, chip sealing and concrete repairs and some of that kind of stuff to try to keep the streets up in better condition so that we don't have to totally blow them up and rebuild them. And again, the cost of everything is getting higher and higher, so we probably are not going to get as much done this summer as what we thought we were going to do. But that committee's extremely frugal and being careful and making sure they watch our tax dollars very carefully, so. And again, they always encourage the public's input on what they think the next project should be. We've already, are already planning out into next year. We've got this year's budget that we're gonna spend and get done this summer, and then we're already sort of trying to look at possible planning and engineering that we can do for projects for next year also, so.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Dean?
Well, I was able to attend the rec board meeting on the 7th of this month as well. And we did have, we had kind of an interesting discussion with the girls' fast pitch softball club group. And they were looking to have the rec board fund about $25,000 in improvements to the fields down there. And of the 4 fields, really only 3 of them are in use. And part of the problem with those fields now is they just have a lot of holes and the outfield's in really bad shape. So they're looking at bringing in dirt. And who knew that dirt could be so expensive? But it's not just dirt. It's kind of a special clay, and the special clay has to come from a special digger-upper organization in Montana. And we're looking about $9,000 in dirt, which is astounding. But even more so is the $17,000 in transportation costs involved in getting the $9,000 worth of dirt here. So one of the discussions that we're having is it's a lot of money and it needs to be done, but the problem is that over the years, it's been rehabbed and also not very well maintained. So we did something, and we're kind of a little bit on a limb, but we're asking them to come back to us with a plan for what their plan is to try to maintain those fields in a more consistent manner. And we don't really have a lot of control over that, but we have the control over the money, so we're kind of hoping that we can, we don't have control over how the fields are maintained, but by providing them with some funding, we're hoping to kind of put that out there to where part of their proposal is that maintenance. So we're going to see what they come back on at the first Monday of next, the first Monday of next month, and just see how we can do that. We've also asked them to kind of break down their costs and doing it as a per field rehab instead of doing all 3 or even all 4, just to try to reduce those costs. And we really didn't want to transport $26,000 worth of dirt and have a great big pile down there that everybody just plays on and that just kind of goes away with the wind or the rains or whatever, in not having a plan to actually get it on the ground and dispersed. Because you can't just lay the dirt out, who knew, but you actually have to pick up the bases, then you have to dig some of the dirt out, and you have to put the new dirt in so that the moisture could actually soak through that without really raising the field. And then you actually have to have someone who knows where the bases go, put them all back. And that requires lasers and measuring tapes and stuff that I know nothing about. So it's actually kind of a big deal. And we want to make sure that the process goes well and that we actually get a good result at the end of spending a bunch of money. So it was actually a really good discussion. I was going to add too, that I know that the city helps, and the watering now kind of happens around the field, so expect a discussion about maybe watering the fields just to try to keep the dirt where it's supposed to be. So that was just one of the things that was mentioned, so.
Kyle, you want in?
Your Honor, I'll just be very brief. Zach Vogel with the softball group came and spoke with me today. We're going to do everything we can to help them.
Awesome.
I understand their plan is to bring in the scoria like they did last year to improve the infield.
Even knows the name.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yeah.
I didn't make that note. So.
It's the same kind of dirt that the Rockies use, so everybody's really excited about it, you know. But we're going to do everything we can to help, even if it's from a labor standpoint. Zach will hone down his plan. We'll hone down with him and probably attend your meeting on the 4th and see how we can partner in a way.
It's a great project. It needs to be done. There's some funding available, and it'd be great to just have a good partnership with the city and have them. And part of the problem too is other entities, other groups use those fields, and they'll leave their beer cans or bottles or whatever laying around, and so we're just trying to get it a little bit more managed.
And I don't think we've touched on that, but Lindsay knows really well if we were able to bring in even 3 fields of available soccer tournaments, we would have a lot of people coming to town just for girls soft pitch and fast pitch, and it's immense what that would bring to town and groceries and motel rooms, and it would be a big dollar factor. So I know it's $25,000 is a lot of money, but I would encourage that also. So
Yeah.
thanks.
And we are, but we're just trying to, I think it's important to try to put some boundaries on that, or some, I hate to say strings, but some what?
Guidelines.
Yeah, maybe some guidelines on how that can be. And
Accountability.
yeah, I mean, but it's tough because when we buy helmets or balls, they're helmets and balls. You know, this is actually a truckload of dirt, actually 10 truckloads of dirt at about $1,700 a truckload.
How long would it take you to fly that in your new airplane?
Well, it would take many buckets.
You could sit on the bucket, take it.
Well, you'd have to.
So I think if there's a way to do that, we should all get behind that and push it as hard as we can. I appreciate your input.
Absolutely.
Kyle?
This coming Friday, we're having the airport meeting, and that ought to be interesting, with this military museum going in there. I would hope that we could encourage Hot Springs County and the surrounding other counties to utilize that airport the same way. Secondly, when we talked about collecting garbage, solid waste, excuse me, and we privatize it, we still have 3 mills on property tax.
We don't get it.
So, I mean, just because we saved a big buck picking up and using privatization of it doesn't get rid of the 3 mills. So that isn't gonna happen. But the tipping fees of $4 for hauling garbage, solid waste, certainly, when I lived in Salt Lake City, it took me 2 hours one way to get to the solid waste place in the county. So, we're stumbling over pennies trying to think we're saving dollars. And we have a unique situation here that we just need to protect. So, anyway, and the solid waste meeting will be next Monday, and I will vocalize our concerns.
Thanks, Kyle. If you need any help there, let me know.
Thank you.
Christie?
I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and probably the biggest portion of it was spent on the new members packet and incentive program for people to want to be part of the chamber and try to build up our membership and have a reason for businesses to want to be in the chamber and have some benefits from doing that. And so I think our next meeting will have the final packet ready to go. So it's different levels for different benefits that you get from it, so.
Tony and I attended a meeting on that subject today, and we'll attend your next meeting next Monday, okay?
Okay.
We appreciate what you do there. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Well, Wyoming was down at half.
What's that?
Wyoming was down at half, 30-25.
Oh, crap. Well, I guess I didn't need to tape that, huh?
Anymore, eh?
So, Tony, to you.
Your Honor, I'll start with an updated score. Indiana currently leads Wyoming 45-37 with, it looks like 11:01 in the second half.
Fred.
So, go Pokes, please. Your Honor, with that, budget meetings, invites will be coming to council. We passed the calendar the last time, so you'll see those. There's not much to do. It simply is a reminder, so we have those. And then if any modifications get made, we make modifications to those so you can see them. Just want you to know the process and that you're not surprised when you suddenly get 8 or 10 different invites. It's to let you know when things are. Please feel free to give us a call with any questions or any ideas, even if you can make it, can't make it. Regardless of that, if you have an idea, let us know so we can see if it works, and we appreciate any input. We will be having, we had mentioned previously with the disorderly house passage that we're going to be having a meeting that's set for not this Thursday, but next Thursday. It'll be in council chambers. It's scheduled for 5:30. We're going to be calling out to the different, we're going to try to get to as many phone calls to the actual larger apartment complexes that we know of. We can't hit every single rental property in town, but we'll try to hit the big ones in terms of direct calls, but that's also going to be posted on our Facebook as well. So that will be here, and the intent of that is simply, it's education. There's some misunderstanding out there about how it's implemented, what happens, what are the steps, and so we want to make sure that that's going to be, that information is provided. Mayor and I will host that. We look forward to that conversation.
On that subject, Tony, could we get, I realize we won't know who's coming, but could we get some numbers on calls to locations from the police department that would give us some discussion ammunition?
Of course, Your Honor.
And I think we know of our big one, but it'd probably take some time to go through and get that information. So if we could have that, it would be very useful.
Absolutely. Airport RECDA will meet next Wednesday. That'll be at 7 a.m. at the Sundowner. I do not know who the speaker is, so it'll be a surprise. Airport Board will be this Friday. IDEA Inc. is also this week, which staff will attend. We're going through the strategic planning process right now, moving forward. I did receive some input from council, staff, even some public, and thank you. It does help the conversation a great deal to have that input. Budget is starting, so it's amazing that we're back here again and we're talking about it. Keeping in mind this is a July 1st implementation date and it's March 15th, and we're already beginning. So it's a long process. We look forward to going through it every year in a very odd way, simply because it is always a challenge. And we do, based on the conversation tonight, I would point out, it's kind of always amazing to me when we get to the Capitol and the choices that have to be made. The mayor's been there, some of you have been in those rooms where we have to make where do you cut? And those become challenging, and we appreciate the help trying to make those and work through that. But that will begin, so and again, you'll see those invitations. We also had, I had the opportunity, as we had state speech here. I was also given the opportunity to judge at that. I got to tell you, that's amazing. I competed at the college level 20 years ago in Colorado, and the kids here would have wiped the floor with me and most of the people, and they're amazing. Truly, I was given the opportunity as a judge to judge the last informative round, which I think we had 6 competitors break to the very final round of state, and trying to pick between the lot of them is splitting hairs. They're so good. And so we had some really great competitors. Our team obviously did very, very well, and we have a great team here. They're impressive. So that was outstanding. And when I wasn't judging, I was walking across the hallway to the conference swim meet, middle school conference swim meet that was held here. So we have a really nice high school with really nice hallways. I got to spend a lot of time there. we're really appreciative of all those events that come here. We've seen a lot of them recently, and we want to have more. Thank you. In the recent snowstorm, we wanted to honestly, staff got out, our people got out and got in front of that really well this time around. We got some great compliments. I know the mayor received some, I received a bunch. They were in front of it. Many thanks to them, because I think a lot of kids don't like them because there was not a snow day and the roads were taken care of just fine. So while not every, different opinions, the job was very well done. Thank you very much, Kyle, you and all your team. Your Honor, that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. We don't have an executive session necessary.
No, Your Honor.
I can go through mine fairly quickly, except I really think those are important things to celebrate when our kids take state in 3A speech. Is important that they realize that we appreciate what they're doing. For those of us that actually played real sports, we find it hard to get too excited. But I'm sure that would not be accepted and I couldn't even carry any weight into a speech meet. So I do appreciate what they do, and to just be recognized by their peers to be in that ability to excel. It's nice to have that, and it made the front page of the paper tonight, and we appreciate what they do. The basketball team, for them to get to win the consolation round is really impressive, and I've followed a lot of basketball over the years, and I've left in the warm-up round many times, so it's nice for them to get 3 games at state, and it's not too far out in front of them. That if they would push that Sheridan group a little bit harder, we would have had a state champion. So I appreciate all of the activities that go forward in our community. They help build character. They help build people that are going to someday sit in these seats, and I appreciate the school doing their part. I did get some feedback from my wife works for the school district, and the day of the storm, they were pretty excited about getting a snow day, only for Kyle and his crew to nix that. And it was really nice for Dr. Flanagan to send out a thank you for recognizing how well the schools were taken care of and how well the main roads were taken care of. So I appreciate her tipping her hat to us and telling us that we do a good job. And those guys really do a good job. There's just no other way to say that.
How early did they get out there? Because I left at like 5 that morning, and down by Aspen Park all the intersections were done. I was like, man, they're on the ball.
Your Honor, and I must say that a lot of this credit goes to Brian Eggleston. We've got a great operations manager, and he had a plan in place with 2 different teams. One team started about 7 o'clock, 7:30, and began hitting the storm. They swapped her out around 2 a.m., and the second team took over. So
Yeah, they did a great job.
yeah, they just worked through the night, and credit to Brian for his planning on that.
And we've lived with bad snow removal before, and so we know what a good snow removal looks like, and we appreciate the phone didn't even ring once, other than the school was a little bit disappointed they didn't get a snow day. So I appreciate what we do there. I also appreciate the fact that we did have a shooting out on Gas Hills Road, and our police department is always willing to go help. It wasn't under our jurisdiction, but they did dispatch 2 officers out there and did their very best to be of assistance to that. And I appreciate what our police officers have to go through. That's not an easy thing to deal with. So I'd like to thank them for the efforts that they do. Along with that, I did get to go to a breakfast meeting with the Lander Mayor and the manager of the Frontier Ambulance Service, and we had a good long talk about that problem, and I think it's solvable, and I think there's ways around that, and we need to keep that on the front burner. Kyle put on a very good meeting for Cowboy Lane. I kind of was thinking that Cowboy Lane, we wouldn't have anybody show up. It's Cowboy Lane, it's outside the city, no one would be that interested. And out of most of even the Sunset Project had fewer people than we had. And so there's a lot of really good work done on that presentation, and I appreciate the information that got out. Also had a meeting that same evening with the Ambassadors Group. The Ambassadors Group, we are very fortunate to have, and sometimes they take some shots that they overreach, but we appreciate their efforts, and we're doing our very best to push forward every good cause that happens in Riverton as it comes forward. So if you have any ideas that we can do to improve that, we'd like your input. Other than that, it's getting warm and nice out, and it won't be long till baseballs will be flying through windows and that kind of fun stuff. And so I encourage everybody to get out and enjoy the weather and the spring that's coming. If there's no other information or without any objections, I say we stand adjourned, and it's only 8:15. I know you guys think we've been here a long time.
8:15.
It depends.
Yeah, if you look at the clock.
It depends on how you read the clock.
Wow.